All right. So I'm excited about this conversation, really. I've gotten to know Bryon a little bit just through being a part of the franchise and just also just the connection through the way this franchise operates with even the top down. They are communicative, they're involved, they're invested in the agents that they serve. And I have gotten to know him through that portal. And I tell you what, it's been an amazing experience getting to know him. And before we bring him on, I want to read a little bit about this man because it is really cool to hear how he came to be where he is. So here is his bio. Growing up as a son of a real estate agent, Bryon understands both the highs and lows of the industry and has made it his mission to ensure that Century 21 agents and brokers have all the resources they need to truly succeed and leave a legacy for their own families. As Chief Development Officer, Ellington works to advance the brand's mission of transforming relationships with clients and customers from strictly transactional to experiential and elevate the process with a focus on training, consulting, and recruiting. With a robust background in education and technology, Bryon previously served as Chief Operating Officer for Century 21 Real Estate, as well as Senior Vice President of the Learning Center of Excellence, Realogy's Integrated Learning Institute, developing results-driven agent curriculums and growth-focused leadership programs for the company's global network of brands. Prior to that, he worked at Keller Williams, where he led the National Brands Award-winning learning efforts for nearly 15 years. Bryon received his bachelor's degree and teaching certificate in secondary education from the University of Texas and an MBA in entrepreneurship from the Acton School of Business in Austin. During his downtime, he enjoys spending time with his wife and 4 children and loves tapping into his creative side through woodworking. That is an awesome bio. Bryon, come on into the show, my friend. Bryon. Welcome to the Advantage Live show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to see you, Adam. Good to see you, Jane.
Yeah, good to see you. So before we get into anything else, I'm just going to ask because before we started the show, you were in the backstage area and just kind of talking. We didn't even talk about it, but you have some of my favorite instruments right behind you. Yeah. So tell us, do you play those?
That's a very generous verb. So about 10 years ago, out of boredom and the fact that I'd always wanted to learn to play a musical instrument, I picked up the cello and started taking lessons for about a year. In that year's time, I found that I have not that gift, that my gifts lie elsewhere. So that is now my son's cello and my wife's cello.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. It's my favorite instrument.
Well, my wife can play very well. She played all throughout, her childhood and all that. My son is learning how to play, and he's getting there real fast. So yeah.
Yeah, my kids tried playing violin, and they got pretty good, and then it just got to the point where they just lost interest and they picked up running instead. But I always enjoyed listening to play once they figured out actually how to play it.
Yeah, the first couple of weeks are rough, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have a piano that my daughter plays. We have a drum set that my wife is hoping that my other son will play. I'm hoping that this is my retirement plan, that they're gonna start the Ellington family band, and I can be Joe Jackson to my kids.
That's great. That's a good idea. I love it. Well, before we get into the whole meat of this conversation, let's do some fun little rapid fire questions. We'll just call these like icebreakers, and then we'll get into the real fun part of this conversation. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right. So Bryon, here it is. What is your most treasured possession?
My grandfather's shillelagh. Do y'all know what a shillelagh is? It's an Irish walking stick. My granddad was from Ireland during the World War II. He was stationed there briefly and connected with his relatives, and they gave him a shillelagh, a really nice shillelagh with this little metal band that was engraved that said to Captain Mahoney, that was my grandfather's last name, Captain Mahoney, one swell guy from a few Irish friends. And that's been passed down to me. Yeah.
Aww.
That is really cool. Yeah, that would definitely be a good possession. Wow, I don't have anything that neat. That's really cool.
On the next question, what was the worst job you've ever had?
I'm really ashamed of this. So I used to sell subscriptions to newspapers door to door in Houston as a kid from the age of 14 to the age of 20. Well, they offered me the territory in Bryan College Station for Texas A&M. Unfortunately, I was selling the Houston Post, and if you're not from the Houston area, Houston Post was a liberal newspaper, and Bryan College Station is not a liberal town. And when I got there and figured that out, I quickly needed a new job, so I took a job at Taco Bell, and I worked there for 3 months. And this was, the Taco Bell was situated on a road called Harvey Road, which was per capita the DWI capital of Texas, because it was down the street from some bars and nightclubs that were right there by Sorority and Fraternity Row. And Taco Bell was open till 2 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. So that was a bad job. That was a very bad job. Don't recommend that one.
No, that was interesting in the drive up around 2 a.m. what they were trying to order.
Yeah.
I would say that probably compelled propelled you into seeking other job opportunities pretty quickly.
It took me 3 months to find another job, and in that time, I convinced myself that was not the right profession for me.
But it helped you build patience, right?
Yeah, and tolerance, and yes, a lot of things. Yes.
That's good. A stepping stone for sure.
That's right.
All right, here's another one for you. So, I'm a big tech gadget kind of person. So, what is your favorite gadget?
So there's the brand that I use is called Goshen, but there's a lot of others. It's the smart plug. And I was saying, I'm a father of 4. I have a 9-year-old, 8-year-old, 4-year-old, 3-year-old. And those of you who are a father or remember your father, you are constantly telling your kids to turn off the lights. And so with these things, I don't have to tell my kids. I can just tell, I'm not going to say her name, the A word, because she'll come on, but I can tell her to turn off the lights. So that's a big time saver for me.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I tell you what, I probably need more of those. We have the same problem. I have 3 kids, and it's like there's always a light on. Well, we will leave the house, and I'll come back, and it looks like everybody's still home. It's like, guys, turn the lights off.
And for some reason, they turn on every single one. I mean, it's just like they're like just walking past it and turn it on and walk right out of the room. What are you doing?
That is so true.
It's way more convenient than the old motion sensor lights we used to have that would turn off, afterwards. Way more convenient than that.
Yeah.
So I've got one for you. What's left on your bucket list?
That's a good question. So first, just seeing my kids all graduate, right? Big proponent of training and education. Got to get that done. But personally, Southeast Asia. I've always wanted to go to Southeast Asia. And then my wife is a big marathoner. And so she wants to go to Greece and run the actual marathon. So I want to make that happen for her.
Oh man, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
It's right up your alley, isn't it, Adam?
Yeah, buddy. Love it. That would be awesome to go see that. And
I love to travel, but I wouldn't be good at running any marathons. So.
I'll run it. I'm going to be eating Greek food and cheering her on. But yeah,
I'd be with you.
All right.
That's good. All right, Bryon. Well, thank you for the rapid fire. That was fun. That helps us to get to know you a little bit more. So appreciate that. So let's transition now into the talking about real estate and Century 21 in general. We'll start off with just basically, right now you're sitting as the Chief Development Officer with Century 21. What are some of your favorite moments so far that you have had in that role?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's little things. So like you said at the top of the show, so my mom was an agent. I grew up around real estate all my life. I was an agent, and then I've spent my professional career helping agents and brokers build their business. So I love doing that. We recently launched right at 121, actually last February. We launched Home Concierge, which was a cool program for the agents where, one of the biggest challenges we have is that when you ask homeowners, and NAR does every year, how many home buyers and sellers would use the same agent, it's regularly like 80%, but then they ask them how many of you did use the same agent, and it's regularly like in the teens. And the big challenge there is the time in between where we're busy as agents. We're out there trying to make deals happen and trying to help our clients, and we mean to follow up. But it's just hard to do if you don't have great systems. And so Home Concierge was just one of those systems where the agent can set it and forget it. They don't really have to do much of anything, actually. It's branded to them. The homeowner is getting great value out of it. They're not, being charged for anything. The agent isn't being charged for anything. The broker's not being charged for anything. So that was a really great program that allows the agent to stay branded over the lifetime of that customer. Liked doing that.
That's good.
Building C21 University with the team. That was, I came in 2017 and started working with the C21 University team. And that was a lot of fun. And so we built up the agent curriculum, built up the broker curriculum as well. And the fun thing about that is, whenever we go do training, look, I was an agent, but I was not the world's greatest agent. And so if I were building training off of my expertise, it would suck, to be honest with you. And so what we do is we go out and find the top agents or top brokers at whatever that thing is. And what I love about that is that we actually interview the folks. So when you go look at any of the Century 21 University classes, you can actually see the interviews because we post snippets of them online. And so, if, for example, we got Kevin Mills out of South Carolina, Myrtle, South Carolina, giving his listing presentation, right? The guy took like 250 listings per year for the past few years. If you're going to learn listings from somebody, that's the guy you want to learn, right? And so I do series like Adam, you joined me for Giving 121%, which every month I interview a top agent or a top broker and a top broker. And then I do the show Mind Over Market with Greg Harrelson every week. And I get to kind of be a fly on the wall and see how the game is evolving, see what our top folks are doing in terms of kind of reinventing the business and learning new things. I love that. I love seeing how the agents are kind of progressing forward in real estate.
I have to add this. I think you kind of hit it right there. If I was to say one of the things about Century 21 that has just impressed me the most is kind of the way you guys are structuring that communication, because it's not you guys sitting there saying, oh, we've got it all figured out. Here's our training material. Here's how to do this. You want to be successful. Here's what you do. You're literally going out and you're finding those people in the network, in the franchise that are already doing this, and you're pulling them in and helping them to then retrain the agents. I'm telling you, it's working. I mean, I can see the university and what they're doing, that team, they're really come together. That platform is just amazing. So yeah, thank you so much for that. It's been really, really good.
Yeah, and the fact that it keeps changing and you guys keep updating it and adding new things all the time, I think is really helpful.
Yeah.
The business keeps changing, we are not doing real estate the same way we did back in the 90s and the 80s. So yeah, absolutely. And, there's this expression from the Pike Street Fish Market. They up in Washington, they say the fish stinks from the head. And that's both a good and a bad thing, right? And, in the good way, we stink from the head, and that Mike Meadler regularly says, look, the power of the network is the network. And one of the things that you have access to as a Century 21 agent or even a Century 21 broker is others have lived before you. They've solved those problems, probably, bigger and better than I could have solved them on my own personally. So being able to plug into that is a really big thing. I know we think about, the value of Century 21 being in the tools and the training and all the resources we provide, and that it certainly is. I think one of the biggest value is just the fact that I can pick up the phone at any time and go call Kevin Mills and say, what are you doing about this? How are you dealing with that particular market condition, or some weird competitor that's come on the scene that's, telling the homeowner, we'll pay you to list your home with us or whatever,
Right.
Yeah,
it's
some
really
crazy
nice
offer
for the agents too. I think, they're not having to reinvent the wheel. Everything is there for them. It's they can modify it and change it as they want to, but they have a really good base to work off of. But speaking of Century 21, we heard in your bio that for quite some time you were with Keller Williams. What made you decide to make that switch?
Yeah, so I spent 15 years with them. I was at different times their chief learning officer, their chief products officer, and COO for their international franchising. And I got a call some years ago from Century 21 team and others saying, we'd like you to come build out our training. And look, I'm not going to speak ill of any other organizations. I'll just say focus is important to me. And I've always said, in training, for example, or when I was in products, I'm never going to put something in front of an agent that I'm not absolutely certain is going to help build their business. Not to get too personal, but there were weekends where I ate at Builder Opens with my mom because, it's tough in this business. And she was at times the sole supporter of our family. And you got to keep that in mind when you're, launching a product or a training class or whatever, that we have a lot of agents in that situation where if whatever that is doesn't help them, it's going to hurt them, really. And so what I loved about C21 is our mission. Our dedication to defying mediocrity and delivering extraordinary. That's not the language that our competitors use, by the way. Just being real honest about that. That's not necessarily their focus. Other companies are focused on recruiting and fee, and all that sort of stuff. So one of the things that really attracted me was kind of our mission. And then the other thing is the people. Right? People are important because you can have all the words on the wall that you want. If the people aren't walking that talk, it doesn't matter. And just spend a little time with Mike Meadler, spend a little time with Kara, spend a little time with Craig, Mark Westphal, and any of the other leaders with the Century 21 team, and you'll get it immediately that these are people. First of all, they're genuine people, they're down to earth people. And they do care about the agents. They do care about fulfilling our mission and really trying to help the agent deliver that extraordinary experience, and not be the level of professionalism that marks our industry, to not be there, to go above that.
Yeah, I think you can play just as a perception here. You can play the role that I'm going to be the thing right now. I'm going to be hyped up. I'm going to be sales driven, but that just doesn't give you that longevity in business. I think that's why that slogan and that statement and that value proposition, defy mediocrity, right? Deliver extraordinary experiences. That is exactly what we're trying to do, because that is good business. That's longevity. And that's a brand that basically says, look, we're here for the long haul. We're not just playing games. We're focused on the agents that are in our network, that we're, delivering those experiences for them because they need it the most. And that's what's so refreshing. That right there, I love the most. And you also mentioned this about like how other companies are focused on recruiting, and they are. I mean, right now, in all of our offices, these brands, Keller Williams, EXP, Remax, all of them, they are drilling our agents with sales things, and hey, here's how great we are, and all that kind of stuff. So we're up against that. And, obviously we are trying to be that professional brokerage and grow that longevity company. But what is it that you would say to the agent out there that is looking around? What would you say is a good argument for them to affiliate with Century 21?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of it goes to value. All right. I've said to agents, friends of mine in the past, that we're looking at this company or that company, and we're really kind of thinking on split. And, a really great question I had from a friend of mine was, are you looking to brag about your split, or are you looking to brag about your 1099? Because bragging about your 1099 means value, right? It means being provided resources to help you systematize your business, help you get more leads, help you convert those leads at a higher rate, help you service those clients in a way that's going to make them want to go out there and shout your name from the rooftops, right? And when you talk about value, that doesn't just happen. And a brokerage that's only going to charge you $1 per transaction is not going to be able to provide you that level of resources. And, we all would love to, drive a Tesla or whatever, expensive car you can think of for no money at all, but that's just not how the world works. And the question isn't cheap, right? Because if what you're after is cheap, there's always somebody cheaper, I could, if you're considering one of the companies that you mentioned because they're cheaper, let me know. I'll tell you somebody else who's even cheaper down the road from them. But
That's true.
the question is, are they going to really help you build your business? And can they point to specific resources that are going to solve the problems that you have as an agent in your business servicing your clients? And, that's the thing that I'd say is why a brand like Century 21 has been able to be and succeed for the past 50 years, because that's the road we take. We're not trying to be the cheapest.
Man, that's good. That's good. Really 1099, right? It's about the 1099. That's good. That's really good.
Well, and it's a really good point too, that, some of the competitors are offering these outrageously high splits, but if the agents aren't able to make sales there, they're not profiting from those large splits at all.
Yeah, and I'll say this to you. Look, headlines are real sexy, right? We'll pay you to be an agent for us. Sounds real sexy until you get in there. And I'll just be honest with you. I've looked at a ton of companies in this industry, all different types of models. And there is no such thing as 100% company in this industry, period. All of them, when you look under the hood, are going to fee you to death. I was an agent with Keller for 7 years. I had a bill every single month, regardless of whether or not I had a closing, that I had to pay. And mine was absurd. I had one of the line items on my bill was $18 for telephoning. Now I had the entire time I was with them. I didn't use that phone once, but I paid $18 a month for it. And if I wanted copies, I had to pay for that. If I wanted to breathe in the office, I'm sure they would have
feed you for that.
They could measure it.
But and I don't mean to pick on them. I shouldn't.
Well, it's not really. You're not actually picking on them. That is what they do. I mean, we hear it all the time. It's just a fact.
And they're not alone. Yeah, they're not alone. So when you will be as an agent, I still get phone calls, and I'm like, y'all probably don't know who I am, but
yeah, do your research a little bit, people.
Do your research a little bit, but when you do get that phone call, just my advice to you is ask a lot of questions, and also too, the other thing I'd say is look at their back door. And
that's good.
You're going to see a lot of folks come into those kinds of organizations, because again, there's nothing wrong with recruiting, right? That's what you have to do as a brokerage to bring in talented agents, and we all want talented agents to be coworkers of ours in our brokerage, because that brings in sign calls, market share, momentum, a name when you're at the kitchen table with a seller that they'll recognize and trust. But when you're solely focused on that, when you look at the back door of such an organization, what you're going to see is a long line of folks who didn't see the value, no matter the fact that it was cheap, because there's a difference between cheap and inexpensive, and the big difference is value, right? If you're getting a return on your investment, that's the difference.
So do you have any advice for an agent who is being heavily recruited? A lot of our agents, their appeal is they're so nice, they're so polite. We try to, be so good. How do you discourage, those people from calling repeatedly? We have a lot of agents that are almost harassed to go out.
Or they are, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Look, the pain's not going to stop. And that's what those folks are. They are paid recruiters. That's what they're there to do.
Yeah.
You are probably one of 40 phone calls that day that they're making, and that's just the reality. And so I don't know that they're going to, unless you threaten DNC or something like that. My advice to you is when they call, ask a lot of questions. And if you're not sure what questions to ask, give your brokers. I always think of did you guys ever see that Seinfeld episode where he basically starts trying to sell the telemarketer?
Oh, yes.
That might be a strategy that'll work.
That's a good strategy.
Recruit them over to Century 21 if they're decent people, right?
There you go. Flip the script a little bit.
Yeah.
That's good. So on the same kind of topic, I was watching an interview with Kyle Sabuth, been been a while ago, and he's now with us, which is awesome. He'll be on the show next Friday. But there is this strong battle between the 100% cap model and the traditional model. But in that interview, Kyle kind of said that he feels like the traditional brokerage model is probably going to win out on this argument for the long haul. We're going back to that longevity argument, right? He kind of felt like this is going to last. This is the lasting type of model that will work. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and by the way, I'm a big fan of Kyle. In fact, we're actually working with Kyle on an agent coaching program that he's going to launch there in April with us. So we're
awesome.
Excited. Yeah. And
that's cool.
For those of you who don't know, Kyle is the #1 agent in the country across all competitors, ranked by RealTrends and Wall Street Journal. They have this annual top 1,000, and Kyle made the top of that list. He's like 500 units plus a year. It's just crazy.
It's insane.
And he didn't have anybody producing on his team aside from him. He just had some admins and assistants.
Yeah, it's him.
It's just a beast. So, I agree with him. And the thing that comes to mind, and again, I don't mean this in any sort of disparaging ways. I think about Foxtons or YUSA or some of those others. Those of you who lived through the last recession, you remember some of those types of competitors that really came on strong in hot markets, right? And these were the sort of discount fee models out there. And the one thing that happens, by the way, you'll see this too in your own commissions, right? Whenever there's a hot market, Texas A&M University, they do their annual study of commission rates. Anytime there's a hot market, you start to see competitive pressure on commissions, right? Because everybody and their dog comes into the industry and becomes a realtor, and they start listing homes for, I'll pay you to list it with me kind of scenarios, and commissions go down and down and down, and then all of a sudden the market shifts, and the market always shifts. And what happens is you start to see those competitors go away. YUSA, Foxtons goes bankrupt, and all of a sudden commissions start going back up again because consumers start realizing the value that you provide as a trained professional in terms of selling their home. You've always offered that kind of value, by the way. And it's just in a hot market, sellers fool themselves that anybody can put the sun in the yard and get homes sold like that. And by the way, they can because of the market in most instances. However, what they aren't doing is maximizing the value that the seller's getting for the home, maximizing the quickness with which the transaction proceeds, and also minimizing the amount of hassles that the seller has to go through with, an untrained agent who has no clue what they're doing in negotiations and contract phase. But my point being in mentioning all that is, just like you as an agent have that cycle, we have that cycle in the brokerage world as well. You have these competitors who come on and offer outrageous stuff, right? You have one competitor who's highly funded by VC money. So they come in and write huge checks to agents because their whole goal was to get market share in a handful of markets quickly. And then now they're about to go public. And lo and behold, the whole entire model changes when they do that. These are the games they play. And
they're buying agents is what they're doing.
That's right. And never underestimate your competitor's willingness to drive it into the ground for their short-term gain. However, the market exposes such things. And what you're going to see is, over time, your value as a real estate agent, you're going to see that once again go up, and that'll be reflected in your commissions. You're going to see the value of a great brokerage that stands behind their agents, helps them deliver extraordinary experiences, gives them the tools, resources, and training they need to be successful in building their entrepreneurial business. You're going to see agents value that more and more, which is, great. That's unfortunately, that's the cyclical nature of our business.
Yeah,
that's the roller coaster we all chose to ride, and so the goal of it as agents is just understanding that, maximizing our ability to build our business within that framework.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's the key right there, is that in those other models, there's an inconsistency of value. that's the biggest problem. Whereas inside of the, if you want to say traditional model, but I would just say in our model, that there is a consistent delivery of value from the broker to the agent, from the agent to the consumer. And there's no deviation between agents. They all have the same access to the same amount of offerings that the fellow agents in the office have. So they're all delivering that. So when you're moving into a market and you're listening and operating and marketing yourself, the value that you're offering across the board is a stronger brand, because you're all offering that traditional, that strong value that can last, that longevity. And I think that's key. I think that was well said. Well said.
Yeah, it reminds me of Google. There was this, I don't know if they still do it, but there was this policy at Google that I think it was 15% of your time as a Google employee had to be spent just kind of free form, just dream, right? Go out and do something. And I always, I talk to agents all the time, and they're reinventing the wheel. Century 21 agents are reinventing the wheel on certain things that we provide for them at a really high level, just as part of being with us, right? They're not even having to pay for it extra. And yet on their own, they're going out and paying for separate things that do the same thing. I'd really encourage you to spend a little bit of time each week working on your business as an agent. Just dedicated time, block it, call it sacred. Don't let anybody interrupt you. Building your business, right? Part of that time should be spent in, at least for a little while, making sure you understand what's available to you today, because I would bet you the challenges that you're facing right now as an agent, we probably have a solution for you. Those of you who know it, Golden Rule is a great example of that. Those of you who don't know it, man, you owe it to yourself. One of the biggest challenges we face as agents is we hear our sellers tell, unfortunately, if the listing expires, which is not in this market, they'll tell the other agent that I never heard from my agent. I don't know what they did. They didn't market my property. Golden Ruler solves that for you. It tells the seller on a regular basis exactly how that property is being promoted and marketed, so that they know. And you can use that to win the listing. You can use that in any sort of price reductions conversations that you need to have. It's a great tool for you. And if you're not using that, that's one example. I'd highly encourage you to spend some time and figure out how you can incorporate that into your business, because I know, talk to some of the top agents who use it. They'll tell you that is a tool that helps them win and service their sellers.
Totally agree.
So can you give us a sneak peek of what Century 21's future, or speaking of tools and things that may be coming up that we have heard a little bit about or don't know yet?
Yeah, so I'll give you a sneak peek, but I'm not going to tell you too much about this first one, because Kara's told me, because they're going to be announcing it. So we've been working on this thing called the Tracker, and it basically kind of helps with what I just talked about, that communication, and making sure the consumer that you're working with, your client, understands where they are in the transaction and what things like that in an automated way on behalf of you, the agent. So I'll say that, and then I'm going to leave that.
That's awesome.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So and more to come there. Go to Celebrate 21, by the way, that's coming up in March.
Yeah,
free too.
Free.
A lot of awesome training. In fact, Kyle's going to be doing a session with us at Celebrate 21. And so
cool.
Speaking of that, and by the way, that guy, if you've never heard him talk, I would say he flies in the face of conventional wisdom of real estate, what you would normally be taught and trained in the classroom. However, it seems like that at first, until you understand why he's doing it and how he's doing it. And he's just brilliant. I mean, 500 transactions a year as a solo producing agent. I guess that's all I got to say about that. But
that's unbelievable.
So
it is hard to fathom.
I mean, honestly, it's amazing spending time with him. Just like his skills in texting and his dialogues on the phone for just short conversations are incredible. So he's doing, I think I mentioned he's doing a coaching program with us. And right now we're calling it Exchange Rate On. And it's about, when you look at the top producers track, we did this survey. They all typically spend, agents, the same amount of time in their business, right? the person who does 10 transactions a year is pretty much spending the same amount of time in their business as the person who does 20, 50 transactions. The question is, how are you spending your time? Right? What are you doing in those activities? And it's not that, you know, the person doing 10 transactions is necessarily wasting their time, but, you know, anything that you've mastered in your life, you'll immediately recognize that it's true that part of that mastery process is becoming efficient in your business. And those who are working 60, 80 hours a week doing less transactions than you want, that's what we're talking about. And so I'm excited about that coaching program. And there's
kind of work harder, work smarter, not harder. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, you know, the goal isn't to necessarily be Kyle Seabuth and do 500 transactions, although, hey, if you want to go that, he'll teach you. But wherever you want to go to be able to learn from him is, I mean, talk about like a Jedi master in real estate. So I'm excited about that, John.
Johnny Knight, sign me up,
buddy. By the way, I did a great interview with Johnny.
Yes.
21%, and that's on Workplace. We just posted that recently. Thanks, Johnny. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I'm excited about that. I'm really excited about the customer experience piece. So we did these panels last fall. They're now posted on 21 Online on extraordinary experiences. You know, we say, what is an extraordinary experience? How do you do that? And so we went and interviewed a number of top agents who also had just kick butt scores on the QSS system. So not only are they doing a ton of transactions, but they're also getting great reviews from their clients. And we asked them about how do you do that? What is an extraordinary experience? How do you deliver? And so that's up there. And what I'm excited about with that is, you know, leveling up today what extraordinary means for the agents across the board, and then what that evolves to next, because that's how Century 21, you know, that's how we get a reputation in our local marketplaces that precedes us and makes it, you know, I'm thinking about listing, turns that into a come list me conversation, right?
That's good. That's good. Well, Bryon, I'll tell you what, man, we've been here almost an hour, so you have done an amazing job. This is good. This is really good stuff, but I know you've got another show you've got to get on, your own show. So I really do appreciate you coming in and just sharing about Century 21 and yourself and just the value that you're bringing to the franchise. All I can say is thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the team you've put around you and the people that are involved. You've really given us a lot to really think about and implement and be excited about. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. And if there's anything I can ever do for you guys, my email address is be@c21.com, be@c21.com. Let me know how we can help. Adam and Jane, thanks for letting me come on.
Thank you.
Bryon, take care, buddy. And thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.